live. We may be a minute or so early, but I'll let
All
you.
right.
It's 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
I'm
1900.
seeing 6:59.
Oh, well, I believe Bill. He's got the military time over there.
It just hit 7 just now.
All right.
All
Cool.
right. So are we live?
Yeah, we're on. We're live.
Hey, hello, everybody. And welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. My name is Mark DeMeo. I'm going to be your host, my co-host in all
Big
things
Mark
law
DeMeo.
enforcement. What's up, Bill Cannon?
What's happening, man? A lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff.
Well, we couldn't have a better guest. He's returning. He's underdressed tonight slightly.
What do you mean?
Not used to
I'm
seeing you like that.
Are you kidding me? There's a
Usually
side profile here.
Well, first of all,
Guns out.
Oh, the guns is out. Hey, but you're also in a different room. Where's that palm tree?
That's
actually, yeah. No,
Oh, that's for the TV.
That's the
TV set, right?
No, that's another part of my house. And so
That's the TV set.
I'm taking the Mark DeMeo backdrop. So you see,
So,
we got the same color in the walls, right? So.
This is the intro that I had for you tonight, and I forgot to do it. Coming to you live via satellite, all the way from the Marcy Projects in Bed-Stuy.
Wow,
Give it up for Dr. Darrin Porcher, folks.
2 guns up, finger pistols, and all of that.
You won't see this on Fox or PIX or CNN.
How comfortable you sit next to that window?
Let me tell you, I got news for you. I got pants on for a change. So normally,
he's got his camo. He's got his camo.
Yeah, there you
go.
go.
In the army too, man.
BFW, built for war. I knew that
Right,
this
you
was
were a
going to
veteran
be.
too, man. You got every box checked.
This is a wartime interview, so I came prepared. BFW, built for war.
There you go.
So, because I know Mark goes commando, so I just needed to let him know.
I hope he doesn't stand up. I don't want to.
No, I always got my shorts on, but you got
sure.
You got a pink shirt on, and you got camouflage shorts. And after this is over, I would imagine, where are we going? Right after for drinks, we're going downtown, maybe to Chelsea. Stop off at an outdoor bar.
No, we're going to Steinway Street. Okay?
Oh,
that's what we're gonna
did you
do.
see that party?
Yeah, that's a legitimate lunacy.
Oh,
did you see that party?
How could De Blasio keep open that close off that street and make that one of those closed street blocks? It's just totally beyond me. But one thing I give De Blasio credit for is his incompetence has been consistent. So as a result of that, right. So as a result of that, this is kind of how he does business. So I give him credit.
Did you
He
see I
keeps it
grabbed
the same way across the board?
Darren, you see I grabbed our banner?
Yeah. He gave me excellent.
Yeah. You know what, Darren? You bring up a good point because he doesn't seem to surprise us. I mean, he always seems to surprise us at the next level of.
Mark, I got to be careful when you say bring up the point. You're not wearing underwear right now, and I'm a straight guy, so I just let it. Oh, get out of here.
I got the same shorts on I always wear.
That's a photoshopped image. I know what's going on.
So.
These are my house shorts.
Are you crazy? Okay.
Got house shorts. He won't go out in those shorts. That's why the house shorts.
I play b-ball in these shorts, everything. I never wash them.
And Bill is wearing a fishing net below the waist.
Hey, I took my spin class today.
He took a Zumba. Bill took a Zumba class.
Outside.
No, what did you do? Zumba today?
No, I took spin, not Zumba.
Oh, spin.
The bike.
Now let me ask you: is there like a virtual image that's on the bike where there's like videos and things to that effect? Where there's like team building?
There's a leader. There's a spin leader. She's
right, but it's all right. Oh, so the leader is at the front, so you don't have like the virtual I guess
not like Peloton. That's Peloton.
Oh, okay, I got you.
$200 one of those bikes.
But you said you guys were outdoors today, right?
Yeah.
Did you ride around the neighborhood and enjoy the whole neighborhood in the sun and stuff like that?
It had a tent over us.
Oh, so you just rode the bike in place?
Yes, yeah.
Even though it was beautiful out and you could have probably just went for a fucking ride by yourself?
Well, Bill, I also noted because you were one of those guys that had like one of those iPads attached to the bike, and you were looking at Lizzo porn, and it allowed yourself to manifest. You know?
I'd get kicked out of this gym if I did that.
You had a lot of, I know you got a lot of love for Lizzo.
That was some of my students in college were viewing porn while I was lecturing.
You know, long before this Peloton thing came out, I thought of a software for you to put on a stationary bike, or not a stationary, a treadmill, where you'd be running, and the closer you got to whatever image that you enjoyed,
a cheeseburger.
They would lose another article of clothes. So the closer, you know what I'm saying? So you keep chasing them, and then at some point they would be naked, and there'll be another one, and then that was my thing. But
okay, cool.
That was just another idea that I never threw out there, and I never made a penny on it. But I think it still could sell.
Hey, Mark, you don't have one hair at a place. You know, you have gel in your hair. How do you keep your hair like that? Because I'm a black guy.
So hairspray, you know.
Well, you got a nice haircut. You know, you were kind of sort of rocking the flat top almost, but right. But now you went
a flat top. Yeah. Okay.
No, like with the suit.
I can't say that I ever had one. Did you have cornrows when you were a teenager?
No, but I had a blonde tail.
Oh, okay. That's right. I'm sorry. Bill was the guy that had the cornrows. I'm 53.
So me too. So do you remember the when people used to rock the tails?
My hair never got beyond much.
But you remember it, right?
When I got okay.
Yeah, I had the best. Mine was like this long, and I bleached it blonde. Oh, the white guys in the neighborhood.
You could have been in the movie Saturday Night Fever back then, you know.
Back then it was you were either into disco or rock and roll or rock, and when they seen that blonde tail, woo, they used to hate me, man. The rock guys.
So we're gonna talk about police work or what?
Oh yeah, I forgot. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
So before we started to go live, Bill brought up what happened in the CompStat meeting, and for those who don't know, that's the annual, the weekly. Is it weekly, right?
Monthly usually. Monthly
meeting that you go down to one police plaza, and basically, you'd have to answer for the spike in crime in your command if you were the CO of your command. And then we actually had an inspector. He left the job, Brea, because he was pissed off that they were still going to CompStat in the middle of this. You know, we got our hands tied. So now people are going to CompStat, these bosses, and they're telling the chiefs, they're like, "Yo, we can't do nothing right now." And what happened, Bill?
Well, our chief from Manhattan North Narcotics raised the issue that his guys are afraid to get involved physically with a perp because of the diaphragm law, and that they're afraid that they could be arrested for doing their job. So Chief Monaghan responded, "I wasn't afraid on the Brooklyn Bridge. Congratulations. You weren't afraid of the Brooklyn Bridge. No cop is afraid. But cops are afraid to get arrested for doing their job." And then he says, "We spoke to all the DAs and they all said they won't prosecute for that, like for putting your knee on a perp's back. But a cop has already been arrested. On June 26th, a cop in Queens, his name was actually David Athanador, was arrested for using the banned chokehold on a career criminal. And they arrested the cop 2 days later. So I don't know how Monaghan goes and says, "Oh, we spoke to the DAs." And you know as well as I do, if an arrest becomes political, they'll lock anybody up for it.
They'll fold like a chair.
Yeah, exactly. So it was so disingenuous. And the whole point also is another chief tried to jump in and he silenced her. Every cop in the field is worried about this, and rightfully so. What has to happen is they have to reverse that law that came from the city council, and Cuomo signed the choke law statewide. That has to be reversed, or cops aren't going to do shit. And people in this city are going to see crime coming back at a speed they never thought was ever possible. Because as you can see now, people are getting shot every single night now. There's multiple homicides every week now. And it's because, well, there's multiple reasons, Darren. I don't have to tell you, but you can tell our audience why you believe that's so.
Well, there's been a meteoric rise in crime in the wake of the death of George Floyd. There's been an echoing sentiment of police reform that's been plaguing the United States from the East to the West Coast. But there hasn't really been anything that was solution based. You hear defunding, you hear a lot of these lunatics say, let's ban the police and let's let the community take that position of public safety. We saw how successful that played out in Seattle in connection with the CHOP zone. We had homicides, multiple shootings. That was not the case. The social contract needs to take effect and establish a posture in ensuring that we as law-abiding citizens are protected by government. And people just don't understand that. When you have an element of lawlessness that exists, you can say to yourself, hey, look, you know what? I may be fully capable to take care of myself, but remember your elderly relatives, remember the infants in your family. Those individuals don't have the same fortifications that you do, because, you know, I'm speaking as a retired retired lieutenant from the NYPD. Do I carry my gun everywhere? I carry my gun with me when I go to the supermarket. So I carry it everywhere. But there's just a lot of people that just may see it from through a different lens. And it goes back to the level of crime that is plaguing our society is something that's being perpetuated by the failure of elected officials to act. More so specific to Democratic leaders throughout the country. We are under siege. When we take in consideration gun violence that is holding these communities hostage, such as Chicago and New York, the gross majority of these victims are people of color. So you hear the echoing sentiment of Black Lives Matter. Hell yeah, Black Lives Matter. But if Black Lives Matter to you, how come I haven't seen you not one day into one of these communities in pursuit of the criminals that are victimized in these communities, nor put forth a message that lets the people in that community know that we are banding together against violence? That's not happening. Last week, when I hear, you know, it's funny, I hear Monaghan speak to how he was injured on the bridge, and that was his war story that enables him to have a level of a Teflon skin. Yeah. I was on that bridge too. I was on that bridge too. And one of the things I didn't see when Monaghan was injured, I believe that it happened, of course, because there was video that supported his position in this. But it goes back to, we were marching with the clergy. There were police sympathizers and clergy. And the march was in opposition to gun violence and violence that's plaguing our communities in the wake of this crime surge. And we were demanding an answer from Mayor de Blasio to take action and take action now. At the same time we were walking over that bridge was the same time de Blasio was seated and signing off on that chokehold bill. And if you notice, there was a sign that stated Black Lives Matter at that very same table. We need you to put the goddamn paintbrushes down in front of Trump Tower and pick up the law enforcement tools and effectively direct the practitioners in policing to eradicate gun violence. We are spending more money to preserve and protect that mural in front of Trump Tower that states Black Lives Matter than we are to catch the perpetrators that killed the 1-year-old out in Brooklyn. We clearly don't have our priorities in order, and this is a sentiment of the failed policies that are emanating from City Hall.
It's outrageous. Just to get back to the CompStat meeting for 1 second. If the chiefs brought this up at a CompStat meeting, which I don't know if you ever presented at CompStat, but it's basically a bully pulpit for the dais.
I've been to CompStat numerous times.
Yeah, they beat you down. So you could tell how timidly this chief said this. Once he was confronted by Monaghan, he became timid. Initially, he wasn't timid. He just said, my guys are afraid to take action. And then Monaghan came across like, you know, oh, yeah. He doesn't get the only
should never be afraid.
Yeah. The only way they'll change this law is if cops aren't active, if they're not making arrests, if they're not engaging the community. Then they'll have to change it back because crime will be out of control like it was in the 90s. But if you still do what you're supposed to do with the threat of arrest hanging over your head, first of all, you're a fool. And second of all, I don't know how he could say, oh, the DAs, we spoke to them. They're not going to. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Soundbite to have when you get indicted.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to read the tea leaves, and the tea leaves specifically state that this is something that's up and coming. You can guarantee that you're going to get arrested if you embark upon this level of conduct. And Bill, you mentioned that a few minutes ago when you spoke to the arrest on out in Far Rockaway, when the officer put his arm around the perpetrator's neck in attempt to take him into custody or restrain him. It was only momentarily, because I saw that video and I analyzed it frame by frame. This wasn't an overly egregious chokehold with the intent of creating asphyxiation. It was restraining the individual. As soon as he was restrained, the officers immediately cuffed him, stepped up, and took him off scene. This was a crazy guy, man. But it just goes back to what you're saying. I'm sorry, I got you.
Mark is bigger than both of us. Mark's like 6'4", about 240, right? Am I underweighing you?
No, thanks for the 240.
All right, 240, we'll say. Okay. He's a big guy.
Add a couple of donuts on there. Now, take him to 260, right?
You get a guy who's 135 pounds, and he doesn't want to be cuffed, and you can't put your knee in his back. He ain't getting cuffed. And guess what? Mark's going to get hurt.
Well, it's even bigger than that. It's not just putting your knee to someone's back. If you restrain the person by pinning their back or their shoulders to the floor, you were still in effect immobilizing that person's diaphragm. Therefore, your actions would constitute an arrestable act in the wake of this chokehold legislation that's been introduced. It's preposterously absurd.
No matter what the crime is, if what happened, what you just described happened, they're going to forget about that crime and they're going to look to indict the officer.
100%, you're right.
So now this guy Monaghan, who went out one day, by the way, I don't know how many days he's been out, but let's just say it was that one day and he got hit in the head 10 minutes later. So imagine you got to go back to work tomorrow and then the next day and then the next day. How many times are you going to get hit in the head before, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how these guys are doing it.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, it's a troubling narrative to say the least. And it's the law, but it's 8.5 million law-abiding citizens in the city of New York that are suffering as a result of the ineffectiveness of our elected leaders that are drawing legislation that is in favor of the mob. These people that are screaming and hollering, but they're not a true representation or reflection of the policy of the people that live in this city that are law-abiding citizens. It's a damn shame.
What brings us up to this point is, I always think about like how it's cyclical in a way, depending on the administration. But you have a certain amount of homicides that happen, and then like for right now, let's say we had 20 homicides in this city, right? And I think maybe 16 of them were male blacks or African Americans, and the other 4 were Hispanic. And it just seems like, and then you think about Chicago with Lightfoot over there, the mayor, how many homicides they have every weekend.
Lightfoot or wrong foot.
Also, yeah.
Also, people of color. And it seems like, I hate to say it, but until this white person gets killed, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's enough. That's enough. Now we got to stop. We got to let the police do their jobs. Do you know what I'm saying? It seems like these, for some reason, they don't pay attention to these homicides. They don't pay attention to the numbers, because if you did and you said, I don't want another person of color dying in this city, I'm going to let the police do what they have to do. Because at some point, they're going to let the police do what they have to do. But at that point, it's going to be so many lives that are lost already. And most of them are going to be people of color.
You're absolutely right. Bill and Mark, you can relate to this story. You guys remember years ago, I think it was like the 80s.
Watkins.
We had, I'm sorry?
For family.
Yes, exactly. You remember when he got the knife plunged into his chest in the subway?
Protecting his mother.
All hell broke loose.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah. I not like this ship
overnight,
hit the fan at 100 miles an hour, and we need to do something, and we need to do it now. And that's what it took. And it's just so unfortunate, because one thing that I do credit the NYPD with is you have an amazing collection of talent that falls within that 38,000 sworn officers in the NYPD. You need to allow the practitioners to take flight and embark upon a campaign of law enforcement that is sound for the population. Policy is coming from City Hall. It's not coming from one police plaza. I'm not telling you that you need to just take the reins off the cops and let them do whatever the hell that they want to do. No, it can be a tempered response, but it can be sound. And both of you were on the job when we had Operation Juggernaut back in the early 90s. It kind of ran like consistent with the zero tolerance policing under Bratton. We had amazing gains as a result of taking action against these quality of life offenses. Now is not the time to negotiate. Now is the time for aggressive forward police action. When I say aggressive, that doesn't mean that we're looking to violate people's constitutionally protected rights. No, but what I'm saying is now is the time that we really need to take the cuffs off of the cops and put the cuffs on the criminals. You know that Bozo de Blasio had the balls to say in a press conference that our levels of incarceration are lower than that of World War II, and therefore this makes us this brings us to the safest point in our society.
I couldn't believe he said that.
When I heard that, I just said, somebody should just run him over with a tractor trailer.
This guy is just a jacket
on the podium.
Well, prisons are empty. That makes us safer. He said that. He actually said that. I
couldn't believe he said that.
Yeah, I was thinking about,
and there was no one that nudged him on the side.
No, he's a fool. He's just a buffoon. You know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that statement. I was thinking to myself, what is he talking about the safer part? Where, like, because I'm sure in his brain somewhere, he has there's something safer because maybe the corrections officers are safer.
Because of less race.
Yeah, releasing career criminals from state prisons, emptying Rikers, that makes us safer.
The only people that are safer are the correction officers.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just so unfortunate. You need a person like Bill that's a practitioner working in homicide for years on end that has a strong understanding of the mindset of a lot of these guys that are on the street that should be incarcerated. You need to sit down. When I say you, I mean, they're going to reject your ideas, Bill, so don't even think that this is going to happen. But at the same token, but we just really need to have a practitioner-based panel that employs an information exchange with our elected officials that are willing to fall behind or believe that what you're saying is a sensible and plausible solution. We have Jamani Williams, who's the New York City public advocate, that's a lunatic. The inmates are running the building when you have him at the helm. Exactly. And then you have Corey Johnson, who's the speaker of the city council, which is the biggest lunatic on the face of this earth. He needs to go back to Boston. He doesn't understand the concept of life in a diverse city such as New York, coupled
Darren,
with
let me just
how crime has plagued us.
Let me just stop you for 1 second. Liberals always say, we believe in science. Then why didn't they consult anyone that are the scientists that understand police work? Maki Haberfeld, from John Jay College. All these genius police, Bratton. Why didn't they ask these people, will this work?
Me,
Dr. Darrin Porcher. Why didn't they ask the experts? They were never asked. Instead, Cuomo gets Letitia James to do a hit job on the NYPD. She does a 57-page report that was just an out-and-out hit job on the NYPD.
Nothing. There are no teeth to this, like this panel. Even de Blasio rejected it and said that this is nonsense. What it was a waste of money. I think Letitia James is someone that focuses on what the loudest voice in the room is, and she will bend to that sentiment. She's not coming from an empirical perspective of crime. That's not her background. She may have a law degree, but in no way, shape, or form is she that effective law enforcement official that's suited to be an attorney general. That's not who she is. No. Not saying that you need to be a cop to be the attorney general, but I think you need to have an understanding of the criminal justice process and how you can effectively gain precipitous drops in crime. That's not what she has, and that's what we have in Letitia James.
Well, these people just have a deep-seated hatred for cops too. And
Bill, I don't think it's so much as just a deep-seated hatred. I mean, you have a small contingent of people that feel that way, but I think the overall masses are doing a pile-on, so to speak. So when we look at the advent of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, what they do is they run around like lunatics. They raise the banner and they say that the place is out of control. It's hyper-aggressive racism that is plaguing society, but it's not solution-based. And so you have politicians like Letitia James, Mayor de Blasio, Giovanni Williams, and Corey Johnson. They see 6,000 people that are amassed in front of City Hall, and they think that that's the growing sentiment of the population.
right.
6,000 people don't mean shit in comparison to 8.5 million people that live in this city. When you go into these communities, you will find out that many of these communities want police. Is there room for reform? Absolutely. But the reform that I propose is from a professional development perspective. I think we need to inject more money into departments so we can fortify them with resources that can better enable them to deal with the criminal climate that's plaguing our society. And that's just not happening. That's reform. It's not defunding a police department by $1 billion when that same police department is experiencing precipitous drops in personnel as it relates to attrition and not having the backfill that was scheduled to attend the police academy. The ranks are stretched thin, and the cops can only do so much, coupled with these assemblances of protests that are happening throughout the city. Now we have to detail a series of cops to manage these disputes, but who's managing the radio in these precincts that are under siege? We're very limited with the boots on the ground.
And not just that, Darren, who would want to take this job now? How are they going to recruit people to take this
Eric
job?
Adams, he wants to do like some sort of study or to do an investigation into radio call response time, because he feels like the sector cars are dragging their feet going to calls.
He dragged his feet for 20 years, and he wasn't even doing a slowdown. That's just the way he worked.
If you look at the quantitative statistics in terms of this is a very advanced study and I'm okay with. I think that's a good thing if we do conduct the study in connection with response times, because that's when you see the immense depletion of personnel within the department that are constantly working below minimum manning and doing what they can just to manage the ship. And then I think you revisit this and say that, you know what, there's an extreme void in the police department that needs to be filled. So when you go back to these reorganizations of police reform, that's when you'll understand that, hey, look, we need to inject what's necessary. And, both of you guys can attest to this because you were cops for 20 plus years, the both of you. We've always been behind the 8 ball as cops, and we've worked with what we've had for the longest. And the same thing was told to us year on end. Yeah, we know it sucks. We have a proposal in to get A, B, and C, and it never came to fruition. So we just did what we had. We did what we had to do with
Darren,
what we had.
What was that model? We've done so much for so long with so little that now we can do almost anything with nothing.
Yeah.
I just got to get some place up. 1 second. Go ahead, guys.
But, Darren, I just wanted to bring up another thing. There is a blueprint for keeping crime low in New York City. And that blueprint, we could call it, was drawn up by the forefathers of Comstat, Jack Maple, John Timoney, Louis Anamone, and I'm sure I'm leaving some people out.
But those are the 3 key figures.
Right. So that blueprint was drawn up 30-something years ago.
Primarily Jack Maple.
Since then, crime has dropped because they followed the tenets of Comstat.
Absolutely.
They tweaked it here and there when necessary. And it was funny, the guy today in the Comstat meeting was talking about going back to buy and bust again. And
I heard that. That was the guy from no, they did stop. They stopped using undercovers for a period of time because there were a couple of controversial shootings and the undercovers were in somewhat of an uproar and they were just uncomfortable going out. And so what they revolutionized it and made it a SNU operation. For those of you that don't know what a SNU operation is, that's basically officers in uniform conducting observations resulting in the arrest of buyers and sellers. and they're just getting by on this stuff. But I just think it's more checking off the boxes and not looking at it from a qualitative perspective as a how does this machine run effectively. And so, Bill, to your credit, the foundation was built 30 plus years ago by those three phenomenal individuals. But all of the gains that we've achieved in policing have been single-handedly dismantled by the de Blasio administration in a matter of 3 months.
Unbelievable.
You know what though? Honestly, when I hear that they're talking about buy and bust, I'm thinking to myself right now, I don't know, is that's what the most important thing is right now? You know what I'm saying?
Well, when you look at
why the department continues to like just go back to business, like if I see a car on the a highway guy, in his spot, looking with the radar gun, looking to get a speeder, I keep thinking to myself, is that what we're doing right now? When we got protests all over the fucking city, damaging, because they're going after federal buildings, and every night it's a thing. Why are we still going back to pretending like we're gonna just for the numbers' sake?
Well, you bring up a good point, and you have to look at when we go back to the early 90s. One of the things that I spoke to briefly was Operation Juggernaut. That's when you put immense levels of personnel into narcotics. And what they did was a lot of buy and bust. The buy and bust wasn't, getting drugs off the street was one thing, but the terminal piece to that was eliciting intelligence for what was happening in those particular neighborhoods. You lock somebody up for selling drugs, and there's an information exchange, whereas, look, you know what? I'm not willing to do time for this, but I will bargain with you in a proffer agreement is what we refer to it in the courts. And in exchange for giving you great information, my sentence will be reduced. Believe it or not, it worked well because it gave the police department an immense amount or immense level of intelligence as to what was happening in those communities. You even had a narcotics homicide unit. Whereas what they did was they focused on areas where there was a homicide, and they sent out buy and bust teams. They made buys, and they flipped the people that they arrested who gave them information that was terminal to arresting people in connection with the commission of these homicides. I understand what you're saying, that you may feel that, look, drugs are not the preface to what's plaguing society in the wake of these demonstrations.
Just, when you're at a fucking detail for the 100th fucking day in a row, it's another protest. It's a fucking another, and you want that. And then there's some guy in highway. He's sitting there looking to ride a fucking speeder. It's like, no, let's fucking put an end to this fucking thing. Get everybody on board. Knock the shit out of this fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? When we're thinking about like, okay, there's only 35,000 cops in this city. You know what I'm saying? So why spread it even thinner? Address the fucking problem. Make it a real inconvenience for anybody to come out and want to destroy anything. Stop letting these guys get overmanned and fucking bottle shit. You know what I always thought about too? It always seems like there's a front of police, and then there's the protesters, but behind them is all the shit coming. Why don't we have a line of fucking coming right behind them?
Well, and one of the things,
picking them off every time they throw something, fucking grab them, lock them up. They should be coming from behind.
Because they were told to take a light touch.
Listen, what is the light?
And that came, and what Bill is saying is accurate. That came from City Hall. That didn't come from the hierarchy in the department.
Here's the thing too, because you need police commissioners that are willing to fucking lose the job.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I'm saying? And they should all come together. Anybody who's up for that job should all come together and have a meeting and say, you know what? We're going to fucking take care of this city no matter what. We're going to do what we do no matter what. And if you get fired, you get fired. And that everybody knows that they're going to go out. Everybody's thinking about this next fucking position that they might have somewhere, the next fucking job. Take care of the one you have right now. Take care of the people that you fucking came up with, because, demanding fucking buy and bust and this. No, let's fucking put an end to all this fucking. Have you been down to City Hall over there?
I know Bill had something that he wanted to say, and I don't want to step over.
I think that if Commissioner Shea, PC Shea, and Chief of Department Monaghan both retired, more or less resigned, people don't realize they don't lose their job. Shea has over 30 years, Monaghan has over 37 years. if they both retired, that would send a huge message. It would probably help the next people
Yeah,
that
but they
came
don't
in.
need to retire. What they need to do is stand up first and get fucking fired.
Get
Put
fired. Yeah,
these
exactly.
officers to work,
Right.
and then the next fucking police commissioner that gets picked also knows what the deal is. We're not going to fucking fold. We're not going to fucking bend over backwards. We're going to lock people up if they destroy property, and then then that's.
Except the mayor is like the president. He's the commanding officer of the police department.
Yeah, that's the point. And if he doesn't have anybody to go to, see, he has that thing that you're going to be fired. You're going to be fired if you don't listen to what I say. So if every single fucking chief that he goes to after that is going to
Mark, I think that those are valid points, but this is Mark, Bill, what's your take on this? I think that if Shea was to come to the forefront the day that chokehold legislation was introduced and ratified by Mayor de Blasio, if Shea was to come to the podium and say, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, the direction that the mayor is taking the police department in does not run consistent with public safety. So myself, as the police commissioner of the NYPD, I am now electing to resign my office based on the safety for citizens in the city of New York. If he was to step out like that, that would have forced de Blasio's hand for whoever would have come in.
By Cuomo. That was signed statewide by Cuomo.
Yeah, but Cuomo cannot. That position. Cuomo cannot set policy for the NYPD, nor can he appoint nor remove the police commissioner. The police commissioner is appointed and can be removed by the mayor. And if Shea would have taken that position, he could have gotten any job he wanted anywhere in the world, because people would have looked to him as a person that has a real sound foundation in public safety, and he is not going to alter his pathway in the wake of an elected official that doesn't understand the concept of law enforcement. That would have happened. The next person that would have been appointed police commissioner could have run all over de Blasio and said the same thing at the podium. Look, you know what? I'm trying to keep the citizens in New York safe, and this guy is not letting me do it. And that's why I'm going to step out. If two police commissioners did something like that, de Blasio would be under siege. I mean, he's under siege now, but I'm sorry.
They called the city council a bunch of cowards, but that includes de Blasio. Includes him, because he signed that diaphragm law.
Yeah, but we're kind of sort of saying the same thing, because all I'm saying is what you're saying, which is the chiefs have to take a stance and do police work. And if they're scolded, whatever, then they resign. Or I was just saying, then they get fired. But they have to come in unison together, these guys. But then again, he could always pull somebody out from another state. You know what I'm saying?
You can always hire someone else. But I think
Bill Bratton was from Boston, wasn't he?
Yes. But you set that precedence by leaving based on it is going to impede on your integrity as a public safety expert. That would put de Blasio in a very precarious position for the next person that comes in, because it's clear the crime is on its way up.
I'll give it to you. Your idea is better.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say my idea is better. We're just having an information exchange.
But I think we both are talking about the same thing. We're both talking about having the chiefs step up and like do your job.
I think that the Chiefs, I mean, I was even like, Bill sent me a clip early and I was amazed that there was a semi pushback coming from one of the chiefs in Comstat. But I just think that it needs to be an organized and concerted effort from all of the members, I should say, the executive level of the NYPD to take a stance and say, hey, look, you know what? We care too much for the citizens of New York to allow them to be victimized by failed policies that are emanating from City Hall.
But they also have to care enough about their cops that they say, no, this cannot go down.
Like Inspector Brea in the 4-6 precinct that resigned.
Like him. If there was like 10 of him, they would have to change. Right.
He will be able to get any job he wants.
Yeah,
as a result of taking a stand. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I just want to address one more thing about buy and bust.
Gotcha.
Buy and bust is very effective, and I'll tell you why. Because in the big program of broken windows, the people that are being busted for buying a couple of vials of crack on the street they're the same people if left out there are going to do robberies. They're going to do burglaries. They're going to break into your car. So locking them up for a couple of vials of crack with buy and bust is very effective. In fact, in the CompStat program, I think narcotics and the buy and bust program was probably one of the most effective tools that we used to get the criminal element off the street.
If you see how many homeless people are out in New York City right now, every night, it's unbelievable. And you know, you're talking about buy and bust, and we have a whole. It's like a fly on a horse's fucking ass right now. What you're talking about? There is, you know, just the threat of these people that are hanging out, and you know, it's intimidating. And all those people, that's why you see everybody in New York fleeing right now. Everybody's selling their apartments.
And guess what? They're not coming back, lots of them. The people that are paying the bills are not coming back because they've had it with this city.
Yeah. Oh my God. If you look at, they're bailing, bro. Bailing.
The quality of life is receding at 100 miles an hour. But just to piggyback on what you mentioned, Mark, in terms of the homeless crisis, for years on end, this has been an extreme battle that we've been fighting in New York City, and it's perpetually getting worse. It seems like New York City is turning into a San Francisco. In San Francisco, you have more people that live on the street than live in apartments, and we're getting to that point here in New York.
Look,
and there hasn't been an answer. And I think a lot of it. Good. I'll tell you what my answer is.
They don't want to do They don't want to. They want to use this money that they get in the budget for something else,
like the Thrive, the $900 million from Thrive NYC.
They just want to give it away.
Yeah,
because they want to downsize the police department. They already got rid of most of the correction department, and they don't do anything for the homeless. And this is something that's going on in all these states. They're playing the same game, all of them. When you go to San Francisco, when you go to LA, or they have these encampments. They're not putting any money into the homeless. They want to save this money for something. I don't know what it is, but they want to pull it out of all these programs.
There was a program, Thrive NYC, where this was, we lost $900 million has since gone unaccounted for. And this was a program that was commissioned by the mayor's wife, Charlene McCray, whatever, you know, she was at the forefront of this. $900 million is since gone unaccounted for, and it was designed to assist in the homeless crisis. I think that we've gotten this wrong for too many years on end. And oftentimes we've tried to bifurcate police as a solution to this. Police are not a solution to the homeless crisis. This is something that requires psychologists, so people that are of a sound practitioner's mind in dealing with social conditions. Police are just, unfortunately, we have been that person that's had to backfill the failures of these other organizations. We need to get those practitioners at the table to devise a solution, and it hasn't happened. One of the things that I hear, and both of you guys can attest to this, how many times have you run into homeless people on the street and you've offered it? Because we had the cold weather alert, I believe it was like whenever it went below 32 degrees, you had to remove these homeless people out on the street. Right. So in the midst of one of those cold weather alert emergencies, you speak to the homeless people, and they don't want to go to the shelters. One of the reasons why they don't want to go to the shelters is because they'll tell you in many instances they are unsafe environments. Right. If those shelters are unsafe environments, we need to put a more robust component of security in these shelters to ensure that these things are not happening. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into shelters to lock people up on felony warrants because I knew that this was this was the wealth, so to speak, to get these people from. I mean, it's a sad story, but it goes back to there are very violent people in these shelters. It's basically an offshoot of Rikers Island in a lot of these shelters. So we need to have a more robust security plan implemented in these shelters, and then you'll have more people that are willing to go into these shelters. Bear in mind, the plan is not for long-term, for a person to adopt a homeless shelter as a long-term residence. It should just be a transitionary point into quality housing.
Yes. Give you a better one. Let's turn Roosevelt Island into a freaking, anybody who's homeless can go there and get a fucking, their own room.
Well, I mean, right now it's Randall's
not?
Island.
Why not?
Randall's Island is
Well,
is what
whatever.
you have.
But I'm just saying,
Okay.
it's like, you're talking about adding more security. And, even if it's a fucking tent city, create a fucking whatever they want. But just give them a place to just be.
Well,
I mean, because when you think about the shelter system and you think about, remember the Will Smith movie? That's exactly what it's like. When he's got to stand in the line all day to get his bed for the night. And I remember dealing with, having to deal with that being in warrants. And, it's funny that you mentioned why I was laughing was because when when you're doing lineups, you got to get fillers. So then, I'm going to Ward's Island, right? I'm going to Ward's Island, and the guy's got a beard.
Have your guy,
He's like,
you
yo,
have your guy that got the fillers for
the guy's
you,
like, yo, take me. And I'm like, the guy's clean shaven, man. You got to get rid of your beard. And he goes, I'll get rid of it. And he takes out a Bic right out of his pants, a regular Bic. No shaving cream, no nothing. Starts shaving right there in front of me.
What were we giving fillers? $20 back then?
$10.
It was
$10. What? I was always like, why don't we give him more? You would keep.
I thought it was $20, but there was always 10. One sponsor. We always had a sponsor, and it was that person that we connected with and said, "Hey, look, this is what I'm looking for."
We had a guy like that too.
That person would bring in all of the fillers.
Yeah, no, there was a guy like that but he did the Bronx. So to get a hold of him to bring down Manhattan, it was a big pain in the ass. So I used to go a lot of times and go get him myself, but I remember to fucking dry shaving.
When I had the 2-3 rip, they would give you like $300 for the month. We would go through it like in the first week. And then to the lineup, you actually had to use your own money. It was ridiculous,
I never use my own money to do a lineup.
IOU, get paid back.
Yeah, okay.
The detective was making overtime. He was coming up with the money for his lineup.
No. Listen, I bought a lot of dinners, man. If it kept this guy cool, man, whatever you want, because if
that's another thing. Bill, you bring up very valid points. How many times have we come out of pocket for the sake of public safety to get the right person in to do something, whether we're sitting down doing an interview with someone and we want to relax them, we buy them food and shit like that. People don't realize that we come out of pocket quite a bit. I remember as a detective.
Then the idiot from inspections would be, how come you guys spent $10 on this guy's meal? Well, because he's a homicide perp and he's confessing. You think we want to give him a fucking cheese sandwich? You think he'll confess?
Yeah. Absolutely.
One time I went to it was in Queens. It was a counterfeit. You think of George Floyd, right? It was a counterfeit. So I go to this Chinese. It was a Chinese takeout. This kid that they were holding there, he was like 14 years old. He gave him a fake $5 bill. It was a Xerox of a $5 bill, black and white. Not even two sides, just one side. And they were calling
zero for effort.
So I'm looking at this 14-year-old kid. I took him over. I says, "Why'd you do this?" He goes, "Because I'm hungry." I said, "All right." So I gave him the $5. We took the food, and I said, "You want anything else?" No, I'm good. I said, "All right, get out of here. Don't worry about it. Bye-bye." That's it.
There's a lot of that you do as a cop that people just don't say. You just don't say. And I have a statement that people closest to the problem are closest to the solution. Cops are closest to the problems that occur in the street.
I helped that kid too. I helped that kid.
You did.
No, I didn't because I helped him more. I said, "Listen to me. Come over here."
Okay, I see.
I said, for Christmas, you need to ask your mother for a color printer, and you got to do both sides. All right, you got me.
Boned up his message, right? And a lot of this is
Dan Bibb is listening, the great Manhattan DA. And today he visited the 4-0 precinct, and he was astounded that it wasn't as nice as he thought it was going to
be. Because when we look at the disease that's plaguing our environments here in an urban metropolis like New York, it's crime. So we know what the disease is. Now, what is the cure? The cure is effective and quintessential law enforcement. You have to bring great law enforcement into the picture. It's not just like, and I tell you, I go back to the early 90s. It was hats and bats all day. There were great results quick, but they weren't long-term solutions.
Right.
When you looked at approaching things from a hats and bats perspective, you got immediate results, but it wasn't long-standing. So when we look to what are the long-term solutions that we can buy into in policing, we're not allowing strong and able minds to come to the table and present this to our elected officials with them accepting it and saying, okay, you know, this is worth deploying. One thing that I see, and you guys can relate to this, the use of technological innovations is stronger now than ever before. When we were cops, everyone wasn't walking around with these. I mean, people were walking around with these towards the end, but the average person in a place like New York is getting photographed or videotaped 100 to 200 times a day. So what the police department has since done, more so particular in the real-time crime center, they've set up a universe where they can log into a commercial establishment or any of these cameras throughout the city, provided there is a consent decree between the police and the owners of these camera systems, and that's how they're capturing a lot of these people. And I think that there's been great success there, but that it's stopped at a certain point because technology is still moving forward, and we are still at that point where it's okay. We're getting the camera technologies, we're using the latent print cars. I'm sorry, guys.
I agree with you. But what we're lacking is we don't use any technology when it comes to apprehension. And right now,
no, that's not true. That's not true.
There's so many non-lethal weapons out there that we could be using that have been out there for a while, and that we never buy them. We never take them in.
Okay.
I
got you. In terms of making an arrest on the street, when you said
yes,
that, I was thinking
so many non-lethal weapons out there that the department should be using. So
you're absolutely right, Mark. I totally give you that.
What happened was they kept taking away our tool belt. We look like Batman out there. You know, you used to have a fucking flapjack that you hit somebody in the head with. There was a billy club. There was your nightstick. You had mace. All these different things, and then one by one they took them away from you. So if you can't fight, the only thing you got is your gun.
Hey, Mark, Bill, I want to pose this question to the two of you guys, and I want what your take on it. In the wake of this recent diaphragm legislation, do you believe, because this is my inner belief, that you're going to see far more taser usage than ever before?
Did you see that
because
cop?
the cops just don't want to put their hands on people.
Did you see the video of that cop?
I've seen numerous videos.
It was brilliant because you know what he did? He went to chase him, and rather than wait to put his hands on him, he just took the taser out and fucking hit him right in the chest. The guy fell down. Right. So there wasn't a physical confrontation. Right. And to me, that's what the weapon is for. It's not to find them to the end of time and then finally use the fucking taser.
That's all you have to use, because you put your hands on the guys. I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
I'm saying you may get pushback for that. I mean, in the 90s, Anna Moan said, I want everyone using mace much more often. In fact, you didn't even have to use, what was that form we used to fill out? Firearms discharge assault report.
Okay.
You didn't even have to fill that out if you use mace.
Pepper spray sucks. It does, because it's too messy, especially if you're in an apartment or a hallway or a staircase. If you use pepper spray, then you get the fucking back push.
Yeah, but no, it does look. It is funny in those videos. You see those videos?
But do you guys agree that you're going to probably see far more taser usage now than ever before?
I think so.
As a result of that?
You know what? I think it's a smarter way to go.
Yeah.
I don't think, if you feel like there's going to be a physical confrontation, and I think that's what I was mentioning about, there has to be stun guns. There has to be a
stun gun, the taser is bifurcated.
I'm talking about a gun where you can shoot a stun like a taser, but you don't have to worry about the hooks. There's a light there, and you just, like the way you stun them, like zzz, you could do
like
that.
Star Trek.
But from far away. No, it's out there. It's out there.
Put your phasers in stun mode.
You
Why not?
Teleport the guy right to the precinct.
No, because what I'm saying is that the whole thing is just to avoid a confrontation where they get hurt.
A physical confrontation, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Are you going to comply? Yes or no? If not, stun. Boom. That's it. He's under.
No. Yeah, but what I was getting at with the taser usage, it's just really going to go through the roof. And this is what's going to happen next. all of these viral videos are going to come out with people getting tased, and then that's going to be the next resource that's going to be removed from officers. Well, there are just too many people that are being tased, and so we're going to take that away from you. And now what's next?
Well, there's a stun gun that's coming out, and I don't know this for a fact, but somebody should be making it, or if it already where it doesn't damage you. You know what I'm saying? Where, like, for example, if you have a pacemaker and you get hit with a taser, you get fucked up. That's the thing that's going to happen. That's the thing. Somebody's going to be.
There have been people.
There has been, but there's going to be a new one, and that's when the fucking taser thing is going to, like, go through the problem that you just mentioned. But in the meantime, there has to be a stun gun where you could immobilize somebody through their nervous system, where they can't fucking move or control their body without damaging them. And that's what you need to get your hands on.
I don't think it's been invented yet.
No, it's out there, bro. Are you kidding me?
No. It goes back to, we need greater logistics for officers to assist them in lieu of putting your hands on people, because the days of putting your hands on people are behind you. And I'm not saying it was, I'm all for, I hated putting my hands on people, to be honest with you, but there were certain situations that, you had no other choice. A guy's fighting with you, for example. It's not, hold up, I don't touch anybody, so we can't do that today. You have to do what's necessary to take that person in custody, whether they're using force against you or a third person. And I just think that we really need to search for another weapon of choice, like Mark mentioned. That, like, I'm not familiar with the with this non-lethal weapon that you suggested, but I just think that now there's going to be a steeplechase to find that next non-lethal weapon.
Man, these guys, they go to meetings all the time. They go to these and they get propositioned all the time. When I was in the training unit, we always got bombarded by different type of training stuff. So if you're in the equipment section, or if you're in at the range, you're always getting bombarded. Those chiefs are getting bombarded with ideas, and they never ever take advantage. It costs money. You got to, it's a big pain in the ass. So until it's absolutely necessary, they don't do it. And right now, it's absolutely necessary. You have to come up with something, more non-lethal weapons. The bolo wrap is another one. You know what I'm saying? That thing, it's not going to choke you. I don't understand. It's impossible for that thing to choke you. It goes around your legs. It goes around your torso. That's it. I don't understand.
You can't use a bolo wrap on every single arrest.
I'm not every single arrest, but when you can.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? You got a guy who's running away from you. You fucking shoot him with the bolo wrap. Now he's not running away from you.
Well, the diaphragm law has to be reversed. We just cannot go forward with that being the law. And if it's not reversed, the city's going to turn into the Wild West. It really will.
I wholeheartedly agree with you there, Bill.
There's going to be a case, there always is, where it's going to be questionable at best. It's not a bad situation, and somebody wanted to make a big deal out of it, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and then they'll figure it out. It's going to go all the way up.
But one of the things we spoke about last time you were on, and you said something I don't know, actually, I don't think that's your position on, but you spoke about how some neighborhoods can be perceived as being over-policed. And my retort to that was that because the 3-2 precinct in Harlem has different problems than the 19th precinct on the Upper East Side.
Or the 7-3 in Brooklyn. Okay.
Right, the 7-3 to 7-5. Okay. They get shootings. They get murders. The 19th precinct, it's mostly property crimes. So you police communities like that differently. And I don't agree with the term over-policing. I would say policing it differently because they have different problems.
Well, when you talk about...
And I can answer that, and I can give you a better articulation as to where I am. When I use the term over-policing, and I think both of you guys can relate to this, these are places that we gave out overtime for stop, question, and frisk, shooting overtime. It was proactive overtime that we injected into certain communities. And so as a result of that, what would happen? I would have, let's say hypothetically, when I was a sergeant, I'd have maybe 8 cops out with me. and I would tell them before they got out of the van, this is what I'm looking for the tour. And just based on that, what the guys did was they went out within the first 2 hours of the tour and they gave me what I was looking for. Right. Okay, you want 8 summonses or whatever. And that's an example of over policing. Right. Because after I got that, in that 2 hours, you know what we did? We drove around, we were looking for food. We went into business districts looking at other things, but right. Our job was complete after we did those first 2 hours. So that's what, when I speak to the over policing aspect, that's what I was spotlighting. And then it's not just my 1 in 8. As a lieutenant, as a platoon commander, I can go out with, there was times that I've worked in commands, whereas when I was up in the Heights, for example, I had people that came in from different commands to assist where we had like a specific initiative, such as, let's say it was like a club night or something to that effect.
Worked in the task force, yeah.
You know, so as a result of that, what we did was we came in there specifically looking for certain things. When we didn't find those things, that's when we found other things. Right. And when those other things came up, I came in with a number. And the reason why I came in with a number is because I want to get this overtime again. Because if I put you out on this overtime and you don't bring me anything, you'll never see your name on the sheet ever again. All right. So, and so I understand what you're saying, Bill. The policing in a community, let's say like the 7-3 precinct, is going to be very different than the policing in the 17th precinct. Right. I got that. But we also have to understand we're guilty of doing much more or function in a far more aggressive manner in a high crime precinct, because we know that this is a place that, yes, they're experiencing a lot of crime, but secondly, people will be okay with it if I do it here, as opposed to if I went into the 17th and did the same thing in the 7-3 that I did in the 17th. Right. But well, you know, to your credit, you have to police differently geographically, and I got that part too. So where is the happy medium in this? Mark, I know you want to say something. I apologize. I'm cutting you off.
No. I mean, first of all, just at the tail end, you mentioned it does happen in the other precincts. Look at how they destroyed the whole club area on 11th Avenue between 26th and 27th Street. That was a thriving thing. Right. Bloomberg went in there with his task force of building and fire and police and all this other nonsense, and he shut down that whole
March operation.
Okay, but that my point is this. Listen, yeah. When you think about Amadou Diallo, what was that? That was over.
I was working that night as a sergeant.
That was over because what happened was you put street crime over there. And of course, they're going to hit hard. And in the beginning,
I don't agree with that. And I'm going to tell you, I was working that night when that happened. If you look at Amadou Diallo and you look at the description that we were all looking for this rapist. There was a serial rapist that was plaguing the upper Manhattan North and the Bronx. He had raped upwards of 30 different women. There were gross similarities in the two, but the execution and how street crime entered that particular interaction. Did any of you guys know Steve Silks?
No.
He committed suicide.
He committed suicide.
Bill, you knew Steve? Yeah, okay. He was a duty inspector that night. I was a sergeant when it happened. And it was one of those things where street crime were the stars, whether you like it or not, like whether the anti-crime cops in the precinct, these are the stars. They look to converge on these dangerous situations as opposed to running away from it and taking an early 63 or a meal break. As I think that there was some tactical errors there. And one of the things that I point to was they were working in a plainclothes unit without a sergeant. That was like, at that time in the early 90s, that was completely against the rules. All plainclothes units had a sergeant working with them, and they didn't have a sergeant. And I think that was one of the ways that perpetuated a potentially dangerous situation that came to fruition with Diallo losing his life. I think it could have been handled differently, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
My point was this. My point was that at that particular time, you were in a command for 3 months.
The 4-3.
You're 3 months, 4 months, having to take a certain amount of guns off the street. And obviously, when you hit it at first, there's going to be a lot of people. You're going to get a lot of guns. And then at some point, we got to move the people. And these people, because otherwise it's going to dry out. Everybody knows you're there. And these cops are under pressure because they still have to come up with the number.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Absolutely.
now it's a certain time of night, and it's like, what are you doing out? But I didn't know. That's the first time I ever heard about the rapist there. So
yes, that's why they were out there.
But I didn't know. I never knew
rapist. And there was a gross similarity between Amadou Diallo and the rapist.
But that being said, my point, I still stick to my point, is just that, you know, unfortunately, a lot of times we were slow to like, okay, this neighborhood's dried out. Somebody should be like, this neighborhood's dried out. We should go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Because at that point right now, if you're worried about getting 4 guns a month and there's nothing out here anymore, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Now you gotta stop people that, you know, just stop this.
Mark, that's where the over-policing comes into play.
That was my point. That was my original point. I brought up Amadou Diallo. I didn't know about the other thing. But
so Darren, the other thing is that back then they had also diluted street crime. They thought they had diluted the talent because street crime was meant to be only 100 to 150, maximum 200 guys.
Yeah, you're right.
400 guys in the unit. So you couldn't have the level of talent putting 400 guys in that unit. And then thinking you were going to get the same.
Great point, Bill. Great point, Bill. When they were only turning out of Randall's Island, and you had a select group. They were like the Navy SEALs of the NYPD, if you want to refer to them as that. But once you universalized and expanded the concept and made it citywide, that's when the dilution came into play. And I got to agree with that. But I think what the department saw was, quantitatively, they were doing amazing work at this small unit, and they felt as if, look, you know, this unit is so good, let's build on the model of success, and that's why they expanded it.
Well,
it was the wrong thing.
I think Safer said, if we can get 5,000 guns with 150 guys, so if we have 300 guys or 400, we should be able to, you know, double or triple.
Exactly. Right.
Captain Savage, or Deputy Inspector Savage, who had been in street crime most of his career, told the CO back then, that's not how this unit works. And I don't want to paraphrase him, but this is what I heard.
No, I got you. No, I understand.
That, you know,
don't get me wrong. Also, too,
when we have a lot of talented guys and we keep the number down and we jump from, you know, we stay in the precinct 2 or 3 weeks and we leave. That was the whole methodology.
I'm a firm believer in, unfortunately, this collateral damage. And if you want to do the numbers and you want to say that we were, I don't know, over 2,000 homicides a year, and then we went to a little over 300 a year, that's 1,700 lives saved a year for how many years? It was probably like 15 years. So, you know, that's got to account for something. You understand?
You know what's but you know what's so weird about that, Mark? When we had 2,000 homicides, we probably had more collars then than at the time when we had the lowest number of crimes. Like, everyone was going out and making collars then. You know, that's when the cops, I found it's weird. I found that the cops were very proactive. Like back in the early 90s, like during the crack wars, I would go out with a team of guys and we would actively go out in pursuit of filling up that prisoner van with bodies. And we did it. And
they weren't drug collars either. You couldn't bring in a marijuana
a multitude. Oh, pot collar. Forget about it. That was non-existent. That was
outside and did a robbery collar. Just go outside. No. You did robbery collar. Just go outside.
Yeah. So, but the reason why I bring that up is there was a seismic shift in society as well, in connection with people's outlook on the social norms, so to speak. Whereas, like, when you look at the true theory of broken windows, it wasn't just policing. It was, if there's the term broken windows comes into play, because if there's an abandoned building, we want to fix it. If there's graffiti on the streets, we want to remove it, because people have the belief of, if they're in a place that's maintained, they want to be a participant in maintaining it. But if nobody gives a shit and there's garbage all over the place, then why should I give a shit? I'm just going to do the same as everyone else. So it ran parallel with the followers mentality, and it worked, and it was consistent.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because you can't get rid of any of this graffiti right now. Yeah, like, what happens when we get back to business and the courts houses are open? Like, how long are you going to stay with it looking like that downtown?
I got news for you. The courts are up and running. That's a falsehood that's being projected by De
Well,
Blasio
but you
and
know,
the
like
chief
the way
administrative
it was.
judge.
I'm just saying
Even
the way it was.
right now, my
If they're
understanding
doing all
is
these, you know, these, yeah, what do they call it? Arraignments. They're doing them online right now.
yes, they are. And right now, they're in the process of sanitizing that area that's been plagued with graffiti in the wake of the Occupy City Hall movement
What
that's
do you mean
recently been
sanitize?
removed.
What does that
Well,
mean?
they have people down there that they're cleaning the graffiti off of the walls
All right,
and
good.
the streets. Yeah. So as a result of that, they are looking to make that change, but the mayor should be embarrassed that he was the elected official that or the incumbent that was in play when all of this happened. This
I
is
don't
his
think he's
fault.
embarrassed at all. I think he's proud of it. I think this is
No,
what he
no,
always
no, no.
wanted.
He has to, because what happened is it universalized. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC all gave it surgical coverage to show that this is what's happening here as a result of the failed policies. And but just going back to the other thing in terms of the graffiti being removed, and you asked me if when the courts get up and running, the courts are up and running. A lot of the arraignments are happening remotely, but people are still having their cases processed in court. There's an argument that there's 800 plus people that have open gun cases that are on the street, because what they did was they extended the 180-80 day. 180-80 day is basically, look, if you don't bring this case in front of a grand jury by a certain number of days, then that person can no longer be detained. We have a lot of that happening right now, but I just can't understand how those gun cases are holding in the positions that they're in. I don't quite understand how they're holding the grand jury proceedings, because no one is getting jury duty letters, and like, how would they go online to do jury duty? That's something I don't know.
Maybe they're
But
doing the maybe they're dragging their feet with that 180-80, so that this way they can just dismiss the cases because they didn't bring it in court in time.
man, I don't know.
If they
But
took the gun off the street, their idea probably is, what do we need the body for? The gun's off the street. That's their idea.
yeah,
Darren,
but
one
guns
thing-
don't kill people. People do. Go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted to bring up one thing. You mentioned broken windows policing. And one of the things, the only way broken windows policing works is if the DA's office is on board too. And they're not on board anymore.
No.
They won't even prosecute, they weren't prosecuting the looters during the week we had the rioting.
Bill, that's a terminal piece in this, but a lot of this reverts back to bail reform that was enacted by Governor Cuomo a couple of months ago. That in many ways is causing this, because I can't necessarily blame the DAs if the cases are being brought in front of a judge and the judge is releasing someone without bail. So, I mean, the DA will present the case in an open court, but it's ultimately the judge that's releasing people because bail reform is the norm.
But Vance is not prosecuting lower level crimes, period.
I believe that that's happening to a point, and that's not only happening in the Bronx. That's happening that's not only happening in Manhattan. It's happening. Gonzalez is doing the same thing out in Brooklyn. A lot of these DAs throughout the city are doing something somewhat consistent, and I do agree that we need to prosecute these cases with a level of intestinal fortitude that keeps these people behind bars. It's just not happening. And like I said,
it's like activist DAs. Where did we
yes,
get DAs that are activists?
sad but true. Sad but true.
Yeah.
Sad but true. And you know who's suffering?
The public.
8.5 million citizens that live in New York City.
Exactly. And when you release criminals, it makes us safer.
Yeah. Just ask the mayor.
I just can't. That's like, it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable statement. Emptying liquors and emptying state prisons makes us safer.
This is a guy that's out of touch. If you listen to De Blasio, he'll tell you to go home, smoke pot with your 12-year-old son on a couch, and everything will be okay. So what could you say?
They all have their own security, and that's the interesting thing.
You don't see any defunding of the mayor's security detail.
And they all, that's an odd thing. That's an odd thing. Is that all these people that are preaching to us about defunding the police, they all have security.
Yes.
They all afford security.
Yeah.
So. And
I
I'm
don't know how
investing.
anyone could volunteer for that detail to protect de Blasio or the city council. I wouldn't want to be near those people.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were a lot of perks involved. You got to get,
Yeah, I
if you're
know
a
that.
detective,
So
you're gonna
you're
get
a
first
whore.
grade. Yeah, you're gonna get you got to get promoted if you're a detective. If you're a
Yeah.
sergeant, you're gonna get the special assignment money,
I
lieutenant.
used to love meeting the guys that had grade from those units that all they did was suck dick, you know. And then when they tried to work with you, and you're like, dude, where did you get first grade from? You shouldn't even have to be a detective, you know.
No, it's fun.
They can't investigate their way out of a paper bag.
No,
I worked in the Warren Squad, and I worked with three of the craziest people that I ever met in my life, let alone the job. And they were all in the Warren Squad. These three guys, they used to hang out. They were a team. They were like all in one team, and they were all these big bodybuilder guys, right? And they used to intimidate their boss and stuff.
What borough was this?
I don't want to say.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, so what happened was they got a call from one of their old sergeants that he was in charge of the Bloomberg detail, and they needed bodies. So why don't you come here? You know, this way you don't have to catch cases for a couple of months. He's never going to win, you know, but at least you don't have to, you know, you take like a 3-month break from catching cases, then you go back to wherever you were. So of course these three crazy guys, these guys go there, and then Bloomberg wins. So now they're on the mayor's detail, and each one of them got bounced out at some point for doing some crazy shit. But it was just so funny that they lasted like a year or longer. And I'm telling you, these guys are crazy, man.
Right, they were just skating. They were just
I
skating.
remember we had a major case in the 2-3. It was either a homicide or something, and 2 detectives from Intel came there for whatever the reason was, and Resnick made them do a building canvas. You had to see their face. They're like, oh, we don't do that. We're Intel. Go do the canvas. That's an order.
Resnick was a lunatic. Well, guys, I have to work on something else because I'm totally behind on this.
Okay.
But I'm so glad that you guys had me on, and I can't wait to come back on again. Time flies. I've been on an hour and 15 minutes. I feel like I've been on with you guys for 20 minutes. It's just time, just only.
I'm not even drinking.
I just wanted to say, Darren, I know that you're really busy, and you know, I really, really appreciate that you come on.
I appreciate you guys having me.
It's always a lot of fun, man.
But Darren, next time I want you to wear a suit and tie, man. I'm not used.
I'm dressed.
I want the
and leave all of this. And
I
leave
want
all
the
of
teeth
this.
room, man.
He looks good.
I like the
Sounds good.
Room. All right.
That'll be on the next version. All right, guys. Be safe. I hope to appear again soon.
All right.
Thanks again.
All the best.
All right. Bye now.